Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of We Watch Shudder. My name is JD. Who's here with me?
It's Michelle.
Yeah, it's Michelle and JD, and it's We Watch Shudder. It's October 20th as we record this, 21st as you're listening. Unless
Or
you're in some
later.
weird, I guess if you're in some weird time zone or the future. Yeah, I suppose. I don't know how
If you didn't
clocks
listen within
work.
the 24 hours that this
Clocks
time is an illusion.
Yeah, clocks and calendars, they're sort of irrelevant, right?
Great start. Good job.
Yeah,
Keep going.
good times, guys. First of all, if you've been keeping up with our Spooktober episodes, we've been dropping new episodes every day all month long, going back and talking about some older Shudder titles that we didn't talk about yet because we didn't have a podcast then, and that's been super fun, and you guys have been awesome and supportive. Thank you very much. But we got new shit today. New,
Whoa, but kind of old shit at the same time.
yeah, it's a franchise picture, but it's the brand newest of a franchise picture. What are we talking about today, Michelle?
We are talking about VHS 99, which I believe is the fourth one
It's
in the
the
VHS
fifth.
series. Fifth. Jesus
VHS,
Christ.
VHS
And they've
2,
announced another
VHS
one.
Viral, VHS 94, VHS 99, and already
the next
announced
one's the 80s?
VHS 85.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's so many VHSs.
Yeah, well,
Don't
you
even
had
have a
those
VCR.
first three within a few years, and then the franchise kind of disappeared for quite some time, 6 or 7 years, and then came back with VHS 94, I believe just last year, as a Shudder release, and now we've got VHS 99 as a Shudder release, and VHS 85 is going to be a Shudder release. If you're a fan of the VHS franchise, you got Shudder to thank, at least to a strong degree, for bringing that back to you.
Good job.
Interestingly enough, we're going to be talking about VHS 94 in just a couple of days on one of those Spooktober episodes I was just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Today we're talking about VHS 99. Michelle?
Yeah.
If I ask nicely, could you read from the Shudder website the description of this film for the good folks in Listenerland?
I absolutely can. Hello, folks in Listenerland. It is me, Michelle. I'm going to read you the description from the Shudder website of VHS 99. Okay. VHS 99 harkens back to the final punk rock analog days of VHS while taking one giant leap forward into the hellish new millennium. In VHS 99, a teenager's home video leads to a series of horrifying revelations, a Shudder original.
Yeah.
JD, would you like to hit us with your spoiler-free thoughts?
Yeah, I'd love to. So, if you've listened to a decent amount of We Watch Shudder, I think you probably are well aware that, as a general rule, JD is not the biggest fan of anthology films, mostly because I'm not a big fan of shorts, because the ones that I really like, I just always like, man, that's just a total tease. I want more of that, right? I don't know. It's kind of frustrating in that way. And also, not always the biggest fan of found footage films, but with both anthologies and found footage films, when I do find one that I really like, I tend to really, really, really like it. This one is about 50-50. There's a couple of parts of this anthology that I loved. It's got 5 main segments, and then there's sort of a framing segment, but it really is all just playing into one of the 5 main segments in a weird way. But anyway, so there's basically 5 parts. There's 2 of them that I really, really enjoyed. 3 of them that weren't really so much my bag. But I liked those 2 that I liked so much that I'm coming down with a 3 out of 5 skulls on VHS 99.
Nice. 3 out of 5 skulls from my co-host, JD. I I'm curious which two you really liked, and I'm sure we'll get into it in the spoiler section.
Sure,
I
sure.
don't want to let the cat out of the bag yet. Keep that cat in the bag. He's been causing havoc, and I'm trying to record.
Right.
But there were also two that I think were far superior to the other 5. There was one that I think was still worth watching, and then there were 2 others that I really didn't like. But I like the 2 that I like so much that I am going to give this a high score in the hopes that people will go watch this just to see those 2, because they are phenomenal. One of them is my favorite out of the entire VHS series, and I love the VHS series.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. If it was just the 2 segments that I like, it would be a 5 out of 5. I thought they were phenomenal. But as a whole, I could just watch a couple of them and be fine. So 4 out of 5 for me, 3 out of 5 for you, 3.5 skulls out of 5 for this movie, VHS 99.
That is the horror anthology VHS 99. So
goodbye, everybody. See you next week. That's the end.
Yeah, we're done. We're going to bed. It's late. Michelle kept me up real late for this one, and God knows
I had to go watch Smile.
Lord knows I've never kept her up real late for recording an episode
this is my
ever.
chance. I had to go see Smile.
Did you have to? Wait, we don't talk about that movie here because it's not a Shudder. It's not a Shudder movie.
We watch other things.
We may anyway. So guys, we are going to get into spoiler territory here on VHS 99. So if you don't want any of it ruined for you, go check it out before you listen to the rest of this episode. But when you do go check it out, as we're like to remind you, please do come back. Don't forget that we're here. We got a whole bunch of opinions that we feel are so important that we recorded them and put them on the internet. And I really
do like the idea that somebody forgot to come back and they're going to be 80 years old in a nursing home being like, oh, no, I never found out what they thought of VHS 99. I forgot. I listened to everything else and I never finished that one episode. And then they become a ghost because they have a life full of regret and no way to remedy that.
Absolutely. They become a boot.
Yep.
Oh, we're going to talk about boots. Anyway, guys,
okay.
Hit that pause button right about now. All right, Michelle. So this is interesting. 5 major stories in this one, and both of us have made it clear that there were 2 that we really enjoyed in comparison to the other 3. And I'm curious if they are going to be the same 2.
Yep.
I think I feel pretty confident in saying that we both really, really, really enjoyed the closing segment to Hell and Back. Yes.
Obviously. Best one of the VHS series. Vanessa and Joseph Winter, who we just saw in Deadstream. And now I actually have a higher opinion of Deadstream because of this short, because I'm like, I didn't appreciate that other movie. It was just because he was so annoying that it held it back for me. But that was his character. Like that. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
So good.
Joseph and Vanessa Winter have proven yet again that they are just just a 1-2 punch here with that Deadstream feature and now this segment in VHS 99, which frankly I'm going to come right out and say I personally feel, I'm wondering if you're the same way. Is this the one that you think is the best segment in the history of the franchise?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's the one that I was gonna say is the best in it's fantastic, and once again, there are sometimes you get a short, and like you think to yourself, man, this would be incredible as a feature length thing, and sometimes they try to do that and it works, and sometimes it doesn't. This is a concept that I feel like could absolutely be expanded into a full feature-length film because you just got to add new encounters, right? A couple of people just get accidentally dragged to hell along with a misfit demon who's raising hell in the real world, so to speak.
Mabel, the Skull Eater.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, it was that. What was that? The weird creature, Furcus? Was that his name?
Oh,
I think that got them dragged to hell.
I was gonna write it down, but
just from the very beginning, in that when like in that that first scene, that shot like not the first time you get a glimpse of the Furcus demon, but when the camera is panning around and then suddenly he's like there behind the TV with his head just kind of sticking out past the side. It was just on from there. Melanie Stone is fucking phenomenal here.
I just want
to
be friends with her.
Yeah,
she'd be so fun to like order food from a place like at a drive-thru and just doing her voices.
Yes.
She just sounds awesome.
She was fabulous as Chrissy in Deadstream, and also as was it Mildred? Yeah, so she was
Mabel.
Mildred. She was Mildred, I think, in
Deadstream.
Deadstream,
yes.
yeah, and then
I love Mabel.
She's got all these old lady M names so far, but no, she was great here. I
have to say,
go ahead.
Sorry, this movie, or this short film, this one goes to show that even on a low budget, it doesn't matter how much money you have. It matters how much talent you have, because they did stuff. First off, obviously, the acting is phenomenal in a way that can't be done by a lot of people. That was superb performances.
For sure.
The effects of the lightning, and revealing the big demon.
Yes.
Yeah, that's something that somebody who knows how to do that can do it and can do a really good job.
It was
I can't.
so
That's
cool.
a talent. The costuming was probably not like thousands of dollars per person. It was just expertly done. The makeup was so well done. The framing of the shots, this is done as though it is one cut basically, but you can tell that it's not, because there's no fucking way that somebody's running around with a camera and perfectly framing it so much. You can tell this was somebody with an attention to detail that knew exactly when you point the camera this way, this is what you are showing, and they perfectly, like, everything you saw, it wasn't like I didn't see that, but I was meant to. It was so perfectly illuminated enough to let you see it. That was a beautiful experience. I loved it so much.
This is a movie that I feel, and very much like Deadstream, even though I don't think it's a comment that I made on our talk about that movie. This is definitely a movie that I can see that they storyboarded and walked through and rehearsed and practiced all the camera movements. Like, they put a shit pile of prep work into this thing.
Yeah, and there
because
are people
it does
who have
play
a
so
great amount
smoothly.
of skill. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
I was gonna say, when, like, just before you chimed in, the next thing I was gonna talk about was those awesome demon lightning effects in the background in the sky. It was just so great. Loved that one. Of course. And so, that's definitely the crowning achievement here. I agree with you that I think it's the best short that the franchise has ever seen. I do have to add the caveat here. To be fair, I have not ever seen VHS Viral. I saw 1 and 2. I've now seen 94 and 99. I have yet to see Viral, so I guess it's possible something there I might think is better, but based on what I've heard other people say about Viral, probably not.
I like Viral, but nothing competes with that.
I was actually texting back and forth with my good friend Kevin. We were watching this movie kind of simultaneously this evening, and he personally feels that this short, To Hell and Back, was even better than Deadstream. And we both mentioned again that I really want to see what these guys can do playing it straight, because I feel like if they because they're so good at horror comedy and that tone and just sort of insanity, but I really feel like if they just ratchet that back and tried to play it straight and heavy, they could do something real memorable.
And I hope they bring Melanie Stone along for the ride. Whatever they do, bring her with you, please.
She's phenomenal. She's I hope we see her in a jillion things going forward. So then there's 4 other possibilities here. We have the opening segment called
Shredding.
Shredding, that's what it's called. And then the second one is called
Bid.
Suicide Bid, and then the third one is called
Ozzy's Dungeon.
Ozzy's Dungeon. Michelle's on top of it. The fourth one, I've got it. It's called Gawkers.
The Gawkers. But
Oh, yep.
I'm on the Wikipedia page.
That's fair.
I wasn't going to remember.
So obviously, I've successfully guessed what was the one that we were both blown away by, which honestly didn't come as any surprise to me after our thoughts on Deadstream a couple was it just last week, 2 weeks ago.
I don't remember. Time's
2
an
weeks
illusion.
ago. Back
we went
on
through this.
Yeah. Last week was our double feature and our wrestling show, and oh man, what a whirlwind!
God.
Anyway. Your turn. What do you think my second of the two that I really loved in this anthology was?
Okay. I think that you and I would not have the same second. So I am going to say that your favorite was the first one, Shredding.
That is incorrect, Michelle.
Thank God, because that was my least favorite. Okay.
I didn't care.
You get to guess mine now.
I feel, honestly, I absolutely think that you and I also have the second favorite in common, and it was Ozzy's Dungeon.
Absolutely.
yeah, of course, right?
Definitely.
Like,
I didn't know if that would be your thing, and I know you like music,
dude.
so maybe.
That it was so so weird and fun in a number of ways.
We should sum it up for people who
Go
are
ahead.
not.
Go ahead.
So basically, Legends of the Hidden Temple, as well as Guts, two Nickelodeon shows I was a huge fan of. I am a massive 90s kid.
Yeah, and if you're a little bit older like me, also a little bit of Double Dare in there with the more slimy elements. Yeah.
Yeah, there was definitely think of those old Nickelodeon shows, but very much Legends of the Hidden Temple is the biggest inspiration. And a girl goes on there to compete. She breaks her leg in a horrific manner.
Oh my God.
And then later on down the road, her family has kidnapped the host. By the way, I want to be a 90s game show host so badly, and I know I've missed my opportunity, but I want to do that so much. I want to torture children in a way, but that's like good for Nickelodeon ratings. I want to slime them and then be like, haha, sorry, Susie. Like, I feel like that's my calling. But yeah, so they kidnap him, they torture him, and then he's like, wait, no, I'll let your dreams come true. And he brings them to a secret cave, which was essentially Olmec from Legends of the Hidden Temple, Red Jaguars for life. But it's just, it's so crazy of just like, it's this roller coaster because first off, it is so nostalgic to how that was, but yet still so off-putting in the way that with hindsight we feel about those TV shows where we're like, those kids were not having a good time. And then it turns into almost a snuff film where you're like, this is going very dark because they are torturing this guy. And then suddenly they're like, yeah, but all of that was true. We're going to a cave and your dreams will come true.
Yeah, it's I loved everything about this. I write down to again like the goofiness of the presentation of the game show in the opening portion. That lady who plays Donna's mom is fucking phenomenal. Like, she just goes for it and has just no ego about anything. And she's so great. And just, like, the delight she takes in tormenting this motherfucker is just so... Like, it gets... You're right, it does get real dark and kind of fucked up. But... I'm so amused by that lady that I kind of forgot that it's like, oh yeah, that was really kind of dark and fucked up along the way too.
It made me uncomfortable, but I really enjoyed that. I was already feeling uncomfortable. And something I have to point out, this is the third segment in this.
Yeah.
I thought the one before it, Suicide Bid, was fine. I didn't think it was awful, but I did not like Shredding and I did not like the Gawkers, and we can get into that a little bit more. But after while watching Suicide Bid, I was like, this is fine, but it's not perfectly working for me. Watching the third one, I hadn't realized what was missing until I saw what it could have been. And this, I'm sure they just gave them the idea of like, do something about the 90s. This is something that played on all of that nostalgia that you have about the 90s, but then it was done in a way that could only be done in the future with the hindsight that we have now, the technology we have now. So I think it perfectly blended what this kind of concept could be, which is things about the 90s, but not necessarily having to use the technology from the 90s, which I feel like some of the other segments do try to do, like the effects from the 90s. And I just don't really want to watch an amateur movie made by somebody in the 90s. Taking it and elevating it as something that was done in the future is just so good. And this nailed it. This absolutely nailed it. And then I didn't think they were going to get better than that, but To Hell and Back was 2 segments later. So good job, VHS 99. Jesus.
And we'd be remiss to not take a moment to mention that although I definitely agree that To Hell and Back was the best of the shorts here, I think Ozzy's Dungeon was not far behind, and Ozzy's Dungeon does in fact have my favorite single moment from this entire anthology, which is what might be, and obviously I'm going to have to see it a couple more times and filter it through the other ones I've seen, but it has one of the most fucking rad, fucked up H.P. Lovecraft weird space monster climax special effects endings that I have ever seen. Like, that creature that comes out of that lady's guts is so fucking weird, and there's purple light everywhere. We've talked about the purple light, Michelle. The
I didn't watch it with captions. Was there squelching?
There was, I believe there was squelching. I'll be honest, I was so caught up in watching the creature.
Screenshots.
Yeah, it was, I loved that climax. I also loved, what I liked about both To Hell and Back and Ozzy's Dungeon is that, like I've mentioned, a big part of my problem with anthology films is I just find it really hard to get really caught up in and carried away in such a short chunk of film and storytelling, right? Like, they can be fun, and they're like, okay, that was kind of clever, but they don't have a lot of impact. Both of these managed to squeeze a lot of narrative into their short amount of time and tell a complete story. Like, I love how the ultimate climax of this ends up being a little bit of like, yeah, the game show people get their comeuppance, but the parents who just like shoehorned and forced this girl into trying to be like a childhood game show celebrity also got their comeuppance, right? And she's just like grinning like a ghost, and then it just cuts to nothing. I loved that. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I love that the effects were so true to how Nickelodeon's monsters would have been. Like The Adventures of Alex Mack. Like, that's something you could have seen from that show. It's clear that they watched a lot of stuff from the 90s, and when we want to do that effect, we want to make it look good, but it's still going to be very true to how it would have been done back then. And I think that's why I loved it so much. I am a huge 90s kid, and this made me feel very 90s.
Yeah, well, and that it was directed by this fellow calls himself Flying Lotus. And what I just also learned is that there's this movie that's been on Shudder for a while that I keep meaning to check out because it just looked odd and weird, and it's got a strange name. It's called Kuso. And that was written and directed by this guy who did Ozzy's Dungeon. And now that's immediately like jumped up to the top of my personal priorities list. Like, I got to go check that thing out as soon as possible. Have you seen it?
No, but he's mostly done composing work according to his IMDb.
Yeah, he's like a producer and rapper and stuff, and has done he's done several albums, and he worked with Kendrick Lamar. He's got like some Grammy nominations and shit. I'll have to check out his stuff for sure. Yeah, definitely gonna have to check out Kuso. So that's awesome that we ended up on the same two as our favorites here. It doesn't honestly surprise me because I think it was pretty obvious that they were a cut above. I didn't really look. I'll be honest with you. My biggest issue with the other three of these is these are all about groups of like late teens to early 20s, 1990s, sort of like one of them is like a group of like real world type alt kids, and one of them is a group of sorority girls who are like, kind of cleverly into or like ironically into witchcraft. And the others are just a bunch of horny fucking dudes trying to peep on their neighbor. And I just didn't connect with anybody in any way in any of those three stories. And that was my issue there, is the same thing that happens with a lot of shorts and anthologies, is there's just so little going on there and nothing for me to latch on to that they just didn't really do anything for me.
It's so funny that you and I very rarely agree on things, and this is 5 separate stories, and I had the exact same note about the other 3, that I'm just tired of this formula where teenagers or young adults are assholes and get supernatural payback.
Yeah.
Like, there were 3 of them in this where I'm like, why is it just all these teenagers being awful? I love that they nailed how the fashion was and the music and the style of movies that we were making, because I was also in video production. Like,
sure.
I was also a skater kid. I could not drop in on the half pipe because I was scared, but I could do a couple push and shove it, snow, whatever. But like I had the same kind of thing of just like 3 other segments are about teenagers being assholes. The reason that I did like Suicide Bid for the most part is that, and I wish they had gone a little bit further with this, which is why it didn't get rave reviews. It did turn into kind of a supernatural thing with the weird prosthetic mask that just didn't really look good. But
I think, if you don't mind me chiming in just quickly on that point, I think it had kind of a lot of the same issue that was what makes a lot of the effects in Deadstream and To Helen back just a little bit. They're just lit a little too brightly, so you see them in detail a little too much, and it takes away some of the realism. I think if those shots on the monster face had been a little bit dimmer and not quite so detailed, they would have been more effective.
I agree. It looked like a mask and not a person wearing a mask. It didn't move. And it was just too apparent that I don't think there's a person behind that. But what I really liked about that, and which I wish that they had incorporated a little bit more, is that when horror just becomes horrific because people are awful, I like that aspect, and I wish that it had just been like she drowned in a coffin and that it didn't have this supernatural thing of like the lady breaking in to take her, and even if that had been kind of implied, but just that got very like ugh for me, this idea of being stuck in a coffin and then it's raining and now like the worst is happening. I was completely into it. I just wish that they hadn't gone with the bad prosthetic mask instead of just continuing with that, and people are awful, and they left her for dead.
Definitely the part of it that got me the most significantly, because like the claustrophobia of being in that box would be super intense, and I was definitely in on that part.
Yes.
And then when she opens up that box and it's full of fucking spiders, no, man, I was fucking out. Yeah. No fucking thank you.
And see, that's why when she opens the spiders, it really emphasizes these could have been just horrible, horrible situations that went too far.
Yeah.
And that was a very good example. She could have panicked and ran out of air, and then it happens to start raining, and now she's drowning in a coffin with spiders. That is very scary. I don't think it needed the supernatural element.
I agree.
Even if they had just cut to the point where they come back in the morning and they swim down and she's not in there, that would have still been very effective. I didn't like the prosthetic.
When guillotine, was that what they called it? Something like that.
I don't remember. I think like that.
But I do want to say that there was like at the end of shredding that. That last bit where the zombies, like the ghost ghouls of the band, put on the body parts of the other band, and then sort of like that just as a set piece, I thought was pretty fucking cool, and just kind of grotesque and awesome, and so well done on that. But yeah, overall, I agree. It's like. oh, it's yet another a bunch of people with a video camera break into a place they got no. It's so much of these found footage movies. It really, much like we talked about in Noroi the Curse, all boils down to a bunch of dickheads fucked around and found out. Is what happens in a lot of these movies. And I just, I thought Ozzy's Dungeon brought something fresh and unique. I thought To Hell and Back brought something fresh and unique and well executed. The creepy thing that you think for a minute is a baby, and then you realize it might just be like a tiny shrunken demon person. I thought that was rad. Yeah.
It's so good.
You know,
I don't even.
Go ahead.
Just stare at each other. Okay. I was gonna say I don't even want to like tear apart Shredding and the Gawkers. I didn't like it, but I feel like part of my dislike. I mean, obviously it was in chronological order, so I didn't like Shredding on its own. But then in comparison, it is up against some really tough competition with definitely the best VHS segment, and then a very, very high contender. So it just kind of feels wrong that I know like a lot of other people are going to be tearing that apart because they are in the same movie. It's just very stiff competition, and that sucks for them. Because I think in a normal VHS film, this would have been the standard. But just Ozzy's Dungeon, To Hell and Back just blew everything else out of the water. They really... Wow.
Yeah, and obviously, again, I mean, it's a big part of this is just I felt like there was just a certain amount of I've seen this before, and it's not even that it was necessarily poorly done. I just wasn't connecting with any of it on that level. It's not anything they did wrong necessarily, just didn't work. But I guess. Well, first of all, before I shift things, anything else that you wanted to say about VHS 99, Michelle?
I'm reading through my notes. I want to be a 90s game show host is written on here twice. So I did write when I was in the first two segments of the film. I was trying to figure out how I would sum up how I felt because I had not reached Ozzy's Dungeon yet. And I wrote, I'm not mad, just disappointed. So those were my thoughts.
Yeah. So what I wanted to mention is, interestingly, like one of the big things about the VHS franchise is that there have been so many of these shorts where they've brought up and coming talent into the production. Interestingly enough, I was looking at the directors lined up for VHS 85, and there are some that I'm super excited about. Gigi Salguero is going to have something on there. Natasha Kermani, who did Lucky, which I loved and you did not. She's gonna have something there. Mike P. Nelson, who did the recent sort of reboot or reimagining of Wrong Turn, and then you have Scott Derrickson, who just did The Black Phone, like super high profile.
Yeah.
And you have David Bruckner, who just did the new Hellraiser. He's done several other things. Why isn't it coming to me off the top of my head? David Bruckner, The Night House. Yes, and the.
But
Ritual.
He was also in the original VHS.
Oh, that's true. That, to be fair, he does have that connection. But I find myself wondering if maybe the idea there is to use a couple of higher profile names to draw some more attention to the title itself. But that's going to be interesting. I also just find it interesting to see, like, sometimes I've seen several filmmakers who have transitioned into making features, and then they come back to doing shorts, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't work out quite so well. That's going to be real interesting to see. I just thought that was an interesting factor there. Super excited for, like I said, Natasha Kermani and Gigi Salguero. Have you seen any of Gigi Salguero's work, Michelle?
I am going to go look at the IMDb page.
Just dropped it on
I think I
you?
just watched Into the Dark. I think I've seen that one, but that's it.
Bingo,
Bingo Hell.
is
Yeah. Oh, but
phenomenal.
that's
I
actress.
loved that movie so much. But yeah. And of course, I mean, go listen to our episode about Lucky if you want to know how we feel about that one. From Natasha Kermani.
Which I like her in interviews. I like her as a human. We've argued about the movie.
It's fine.
I have so much respect for her as a human being, though,
Sure.
and I feel bad because I'm like, you did a really good thing for women in the film industry, and I'm so sorry.
No, it's you have nothing to apologize for,
But
Michelle.
that's one that I feel bad when I don't like art from people that I do like.
That's fair.
I'm like, I wanted to like your thing because I like you as a person. Yeah.
I know how that goes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
no,
we've gotten totally off track here. That's fine. It's fine, guys. It's an anthology episode. We talked about
I was gonna say
VHS
5
99.
things. Yeah.
Talked a
we had
little
lot
bit
to talk
about VHS 85. Michelle, other than To Hell and Back, then before you saw this entry in the franchise, what was your top of all time short in the VHS franchise?
It would have to be one of Timo T. John. Oh, I wish I'd Googled how to pronounce his last name, but you know who I'm talking about.
Timo, yeah.
Yeah, but it's Timo. I can spell it, but Timo Tjanto, who is making the Train to Busan remake, and I am very excited. I was very tentative, and now I'm 100% on board that train. Last Train to New York, now that I know Timo is making it. I really liked both his Suicide Pact cult interview documentary from, I think, 2, and then the one that we just watched in VHS 94, which is the robot people, recreation cyborg things, whatever you want to call them.
The one thing I will say that I wish they had done as a closing thought on our episode here about VHS 99. The one thing I will say is I think they missed a golden opportunity. Like, I totally get why they brought it in with a chant on them on that coven of witches now trying to summon up Mabel, and I thought that was cool. But I feel like they missed a real golden opportunity right at the end there to throw in a Hail Ratma.
You've got a point. You're going to have to, everything I said about To Hell and Back, I take it all to hell and back. Everything, it's trash. It's awful. I wish they never made it. And on that note,
if you don't know Hail Ratma, stay tuned for a couple of days. We'll talk about it on VHS 94. Who's saying goodnight tonight? So hard.
I can say goodnight.
Okay.
Say goodnight, Michelle. Good night, Michelle.